What's up, everybody? This is the Rabid Hedgehog, and I'm at Indian of Oklahoma City, and today we're going to ride the 2019 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. Let's go ahead and take a walk around, look at the controls, and get ready to ride. Alright, let's go ahead and do a walk around on this machine here. And on the 2019, they've changed the look a little bit, where it's a little bit more squared off, not as rounded as the original Chieftains were. You'll see that definitely in the saddlebags. Some people say they look kind of like the Harley-Davidson motorcycle bags, but they are not quite the same. You'll see that they use a central locking and central opening. When you open the bag, still pretty deep inside, can hold up to 22 pounds, and they are no longer quick release, they are actually screwed in again. You go around here and the fenders are not as flowy as they used to be. They're more like the Elite fender, so it cuts down a lot on the tire coverage. You can see more of that bigger wheel. And of course you walk over to the front and you see the new changed fairing with the HID headlight. They added the slipstream vent in there, and some people will say that copies Harley-Davidson, but that's not really the case. To be honest, the Victory's had that first, which is Polaris as well, and so did Honda and several other companies actually. So you just kind of walk around. This bike is absolutely a beautiful shape and beautiful design. Kind of go around here. And also they changed nothing really except for the control for the windshield now over on the right side versus the left. So right, you have windshield control. If you double tap it, it'll bring the windshield all the way down. Double tap it up and it'll go all the way up. For cruise control, you press in to turn on, left to set, right to resume, and of course your starter switch there. You then have your power button, which powers up the ride command system and the motorcycle. You'll see here you have range to empty, your regular speedometer. You also have cruise control on, set, left turn signal, fuel light, side stand, and neutral. Right side you have your tachometer with a maintenance warning, tire pressure monitoring, oil, battery, right turn signal, ABS, engine, gear counter, and current odometer. Now you look around here on the left side, you also have a info button for the screen. So you go through and scroll through your ride command on the left side, similar to the old ones. So you see different screens there. Of course you have vehicle status information, trip status and information. The new vehicle control modes. Tour is going to be kind of the rain mode, lessens the impact of the throttle. Standard throttle response. Sport makes that a little bit snippier. We'll test that on the actual ride. And of course you can look at that. This is your trip, this is your music, your phone, and your nav off, of course. And then it got horn, bright, and then flash to pass. You then have your turn signals there and your hazard on there. You turn the volume up with this button, turn it down, and you tune it and make selections. And then this is your information selection on the screen and zoom and everything for your navigation, as you'll see there. So I'll actually switch that back to the vehicle status screen with ride command so I can test those on that ride, and let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to start out in sport mode here real quick. That way I can test the snippiness of the throttle, and it's kind of interesting. So let me get back down here. Yeah, that is really quick responding. It's pretty much like a 1-to-1 turn ratio. As soon as you like tap it, I mean barely even move the grip, this bike starts to jump on you. Still got that amazing pull like the 111 has. Another thing I noticed is actually the seat is different. It's now more tapered and square in the back, so it has a bit of a difference when it comes down to where you're sitting at. So it feels like it's got a small backing that comes to just about your waist, and that's a little bit different, but not too terrible. Like I said, I want to start out in sport mode to kind of find out how it all does it. It's so quick responding, it's funny. Alrighty. Still handles really well, of course. It's one thing about these particular motorcycles is that you don't expect them to actually maneuver like they do, but they maneuver rather well. And we still got very good engine braking on this thing. Let me cut over here. Hopefully get out of the line of fire here and be able to take off on a roll there. So like I said, the biggest change is the outer fairing and the way it looks. and now this as well, because what that slipstream vent does up there is it pushes wind through here and helps break up what would be something that causes buffeting and stuff at the top of the helmet. So I'll get to test that here in a moment when we jump on the interstate. But the second biggest difference is that vehicle control, the ride modes, which changes the engine mapping that these bikes have. So, like I said, starting in sport mode, which literally barely move that thing and it's ready to go. Alrighty. I mean, that is awesome. It is a huge difference. And I could already tell, I'm about to switch it, but I could tell this motorcycle really does jump off the line much faster. And there's not a different power boost, it's just how the throttle is responding. Whoa. That's awesome. Already in 6th gear. So let me get back down to a more appropriate speed here. Go ahead and set the cruise control here. There you go. So as you can see, we are at 60 miles an hour, our highway speed here. And we're pulling a reasonable 2,300-ish RPMs, it looks like. So this engine is not rotating very much at all. And it's got that Indian smoothness. Mirrors are crystal clear, very visible, very wide. I can barely even see my arm on each side there. And it still gives you that commanding presence on the road. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bump that, see if I can get that to work with my glove. There we go. Now we're in standard mode. So that's going to change the throttle mapping to what we're used to on these motorcycles. And when we do a change of direction here, we will find out if it feels like the old school ThunderStroke whenever we hit that. Like I said, nothing new about the engine, just the way the throttle gets to play. And also does not change any of your suspension modes either. So it's not a suspension setup thing, strictly engine mapping. I just want to point that out. But the suspension on this bike, you're not going to complain at all. And you can see this highway is still broken. They're still working on it here and there, and it's still got some bumps and weird divots and all that. And to be honest, it's all good. Come on, Honda. Oh yeah, look at takes a lot more input in standard mode than sport mode. That's a big difference. Yeah, I know some people will be like, why didn't you just power ahead of him? Well, let's put it this way. I'm a motorcycle. I still lose against the Honda Accord here. And I respect this motorcycle because of who lets me ride these. But definitely a big difference in the throttle response. I even dropped gears to get up and go, and it really does take a lot more effort to get it to rev out again than it does in sport mode. I mean, here, let me kind of show you here. So there's, if you can kind of see the tachometer there, there's all that. Now I'm in cruise control, so I can do this. There's sport mode right there. All right, and here we go. And as you'll see, it climbs. I mean, it just responds much, much, much quicker than the standard mode. And now I'll stick it back and go to tour. There we go. So now when we go to the next spot, we'll be in tour mode. and see how much different that changes it, because as I was told, it's kind of like the rain mode on this motorcycle. Go ahead and jump off here and we'll do some riding around town. Man, I just love the way these motorcycles ride. And that buffeting has cleaned up quite a bit, actually, because the shorter windscreens on these versus the Roadmaster, you get some buffeting for sure on the top of the helmet. And to be honest, I've got my vents closed and everything because of the temperatures out today, and it's not even bothering me right now. I don't feel anything at the top of the helmet whirling around or nothing. It's a whole lot different experience. Let me go to the low position. Like I said, double tap, go all the way to low. And I'm in tour mode and engine braking. I'm not even touching the regular brakes. I'm just bringing this bit down by compression braking alone. And very good engine braking. Touring mode is very lazy. Like, it takes like a quarter of a turn to actually feel the engine start picking up some decent revs. So there is quite a difference. So in sport mode, it's immediate, it's quick acting, throttle's right there. In standard mode, about 1/8 of an inch or so, maybe a little bit more, then you start to get a good rev up. And this one is literally like a 1/2 inch, and then you get kind of blasting around, and then you feel that difference. So it does change the way it maps the throttle out. If I go to 6th gear here, which is actually probably a little bit too much for this, you're below 2,000 RPMs. It takes forever to get back on, but that's part of it because the way that works on that throttle mapping. But definitely, if you're in the rain, it's kind of comforting that you can't just suddenly overpower yourself. And if you're just wanting to tour and not speed away and knock your passenger around or anything, it's kind of nice to have that as well. Fueling and everything on this motorcycle is actually really good in all the modes. Like I said, the only thing is kind of how far you got to turn for a reaction from the engine. And you can kind of feel that it just kind of more lazily lumbers along in the touring mode. So it takes a second to activate, doesn't spin up as quick. It just allows you to tour kind of comfortably. Like I said, the suspension is amazing too. Very comfortable. Absolutely just fantastic to ride on a cool day like this. You get great wind protection. I got that windshield all the way down. I do feel a buffet now at the top of the helmet. Definitely wasn't there when the windshield was fully deployed. But just rides so well. Take it easy because we got some gravel. There we go. I'll go back to sport mode. Let that take place. That's amazing what the difference is. I mean, instantaneous throttle response. I think I like sport mode the best, but that's the kind of bikes I come from. I don't come from big heavy cruisers. I come from those smaller, faster, lighter motorcycles like my CB1100EX and my Night Rod, and all those others that respond so quickly like this. That's what makes this a lot more fun. It's a big cruiser that has this identity crisis, thinking that it's a sport bike at the same time. Of course, we've got pretty decent winds coming around right now, and no movement or anything on this motorcycle. It just holds its position in the road because its weight. These broken roads do not upset it at all. It rides really well over them. Rides just as good as its older counterparts, and like I said, I don't think there's really any major suspension changes or anything of nature to report there, but there doesn't need to be. It's a lot easier to rev match whenever you're in sport mode. And to me, this is kind of a one foot bike too when I'm at a stop sign or stoplight, because I just simply hold my foot there on the brake to keep the lights on and land one-footed, because it's so well balanced. And I know this machine is in the 700s, you know, of about 750 to 780 pound range. It simply doesn't feel like it. It feels so much lighter on its feet. And with this new mode and that engine picking up so quickly, it feels like it's got an identity crisis. It feels like a sport bike in a way, in terms of how quick it wants to get off the line. And the other two modes, it really is a lazy motorcycle. It's a little touring bike, but put it in sport mode, it definitely takes right off. No, it's not like gonna go to 0 to 60 in lightning blistering speeds or anything. It's just gonna go quickly there. Easily get back up to highway speed. Alrighty. You can hear my helmet probably chattering. Like I said, that windshield in that lower position, there's a lot more buffeting than there was before. Let me put that back up there. And there went again. I mean, there is no buffeting at all. I don't know if you can hear that in my microphone, but if you can, you definitely could tell that there's a lot more chatter and a lot more plastic shaking around from the buffeting. But when you put this thing up, it protects you a whole lot more than without it. Of course, this bike doesn't have lowers, so you do get wind flow down below your legs, and it's in the 30s right now or so, no 50s, I don't know what it is anymore. That's not right, I promise you. So it's being cooler today. You can feel that wind below you, but you have nothing here bothering you at all. No weird turbulence, no nothing. It's a lot different, because I used to have wind coming up below my helmet. I used to have you know, some different buffeting areas, but this bike has changed that, and it is a lot different. That new fairing design pushes the air differently and actually better for the rider than the old fairing did. I know the old fairing was kind of more classic design, a little bit more pronounced and proud. This one's a more subtle fairing, but it still has that Indian heritage to it. And I mean, it looks great. The bike rides fantastically. I mean, versus a Street Glide's fairing, it does just as good, actually better, because the windshield is much taller and you don't have as much buffeting, and you can adjust the windshield on the fly, something that a Street Glide you can just simply never do. You have to buy yours. And this is a smoke screen, so some people might not like looking through it at that top end because that's smoke and it might distort their vision a little bit. But you can always change that, drop that down a smidge, get it out of your line of sight, or move it at any time and not think about it. You don't have to buy a whole new screen just to make it work for you. You can just simply on the fly change it and make it work. And that's been on any Indian for the entire time they've been built. But it's a fantastic feature, and I believe this windshield feels like it's a little taller than the old one. I could be completely wrong. It feels like it is, but I guess it could be the way the wind is being deflected, and that new vent and everything that helps stream the wind away. I'll put that back up top to get rid of my buffeting there. But I mean, this bike is a fantastic redo and mid-cycle refresh, if you want to call it that, of the Chieftain line. And of course, I love the Dark Horse, the blackened out look. Now, if you want the classic Indian design still, they still have the Chieftain Classic. which has the original design on it. So that slots above this bike in terms of where it is on the pricing scheme, but they still kept the classic design for you if you're still looking for that rounder Indian design. This one just more makes it contemporary. It's still more round than a Harley Davidson. It still, to me, has a completely different design flavor, but it's still tastefully Indian, still tastefully different. I don't see the complete similarities. I still see a wider saddlebag. I still see a rounder saddlebag. I don't see them being the stretch bag either. It's still that, it still cuts off right at the same point. So I see some similarities here and there, yes, but the fairing is a little bit blockier on this one than a Harley. It's a little bit blockier than even its classic setup. So it has those differences between the designs and such that distinguishes it from its original look to the new look to how it rides. And like I said, the new fairing is so much better though at deflecting the wind and working with the wind that I really enjoy this dead air that's between me and the bike and not the buffeting that I used to experience. So it's made the ride more comfortable than the original fairing and windshield combination. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's completely taller or not. It just feels like it does go to a higher position than the other one for some reason. And like I said, it could very much well be just that outer fairing and the way it deflects the wind coming back on it. So overall, if you're looking for a long-range bagger, and like I said, I love it in sport mode because that's just got my flavor for the throttle response. But if you're looking for a long-range bagger and a good motorcycle, and this also does have the parade mode now. I forgot to mention, you go to the settings and actually do cylinder deactivation, so that back cylinder will cut off and help keep that heat off of you when you're stopped at a traffic light and stuff. So if you want to add that to it, if you're going to be doing some city riding or, you know, stuff like that, if you're going to use that for the parade and everything, then this bike has that mode on it now where you can do that and be able to shut that cylinder off and everything. So it does have that new feature on here for this year too. So it has quite a bit more than the old one, and it rides so well still. And like I said, just these minor changes feels much different than the older Chieftain, especially that wind deflection is so much different. I know this doesn't seem any different right here because you still have the lights for the switch there. I know they don't have them, but it does have the switch still in place because this inner fairing didn't change for those outer lights. But I mean, everything out there changed, and it just deflects everything better. It rides a whole lot more fun because of that sport mode. I definitely like that feature on it. It allows it to just take off the line and give it like an identity crisis. Like this bike needed one anyway because for a big bike it steers so well. But overall, I'm excited about this bike. I like the new changes. I like the new look. Overall, recommended, and I hope you guys enjoy this review and visit Indian Motorcycles of Oklahoma City and pick you up one of these rides today. At any rate, catch you on that flip side and the next review.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And check out my stores at Teespring and TeePublic. Catch you on that flip side.